The result of WWE Knockout Room in 2022 summed up the result. Brock Lesnar won the WWE Championship on the chaotic main night. In his storied career, there was still one thing Brock Lesnar had never done: wrestle in the Elimination Chamber. Lesnar addressed that on Saturday in Saudi Arabia, and left the match as the new WWE Champion. Lesnar shared the chamber with AJ Styles, Seth Rollins, Riddle, Austin Theory, and Bobby Lashley, who entered the match as champion after having defeated Lesnar at the Royal Rumble in January. Lashley would never actually enter the match, being taken out due to the concussion protocols after Rollins powerbombed Theory into Lashley's cell wall, sending him crashing into the metal framing. With Lashley out of the way, there was no one who stood a chance at stopping Lesnar once he escaped from the confines of his pod. And Lesnar made quick work of all other men in the match to become a world champion for the 10th time in his career. Lesnar's match with Roman Reigns will now be a title versus title match after Reigns retained his Universal Championship by defeating Goldberg earlier in the show. WWE Elimination Chamber was presented live Saturday afternoon from Jeddah Super Dome in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. CBS Sports was with you the whole way through the event, providing updates and highlights as the action goes down in the live blog below. 2022 WWE Royal Rumble results. Grades: The Miz vs. Rey Mysterio. Mysterio got off to a hot start before Miz tried to take a powder outside the ring. Dominik Mysterio grabbed The Miz after a bit of stalling and rolled him back into the ring. After Miz took over the match, he took a swing at Dominik outside the ring, leading Dominik to deliver a shot to Miz's face and fall into a roll-up by Rey for a near fall. Momentum swings and reversals continued down the stretch until Mysterio hit a 619. Forcing Miz to roll out of the ring again, this time grabbing a chair. As the referee was distracted, Dominik grabbed the chair from Miz, who acted as though Dominik had hit him with the chair. After the referee kicked Dominik out from ringside, Miz tried to hit Rey with a skull-crushing finale only for Rey to roll him up for the pin. After the match, the Mysterios further beat down the Miz. Standard kickoff match stuff here, priming the fans with some good old-fashioned face-over-heel action. Rey Mysterio death The Miz via pinfall. Grade: C+. Just when you thought at WWE Roman Reigns was about to connect with his hashtag spear, here comes it Goldberg. Hashtag WWE Chamber PIC at twitter.com/WWYTVRWAMF. WWE February 19, 2022 Universal Championship Roman Reigns vs. Goldberg. Despite Goldberg showing off a bit of power early, Reigns took him to the outside and bounced him off the announce table several times. Goldberg quickly turned things around by throwing Reigns into the ringside barricade. Back in the ring, Reigns looked to turn the table, but Goldberg hit a spear. Looking for the jackhammer to finish it, Goldberg was hit by a counter urinage for a 2 count. Reigns hit a Superman punch and set up for a spear only to run into another spear from Goldberg. The challenger failed again to hit the follow-up jackhammer, instead getting locked in a guillotine choke. Goldberg tried to slam his way out of the hold but was eventually choked out, forcing the referee to stop the match. As short as expected given Goldberg's limitations in the ring, there was nothing good in the match, but it avoided any sort of disaster, which was certainly a possibility coming into the match. Roman Reigns death. Goldberg to retain the title. Grade: C+. The strength is on full display by at Bianca Belair WWE and at Rhea Ripley WWE. Inside the Elimination Chamber. Hashtag WWE Chamber PIC at twitter.com/5JVX8M0ZA. WWE February 19, 2022 Elimination Chamber. Bianca Belair vs. Liv Morgan vs. Doudrop vs. Rhea Ripley vs. Nikki ASTO vs. Alexa Bliss. Nikki and Morgan were the first 2 women in the match. After a fairly routine open to the match, with both women being thrown into the fence and pods around the ring, Doudrop entered the bout and immediately took the fight to Nikki, smashing her into the chain link before turning her attention to Morgan. Ripley was the next woman released from her pod and began stalking Nikki. In the first big moment of the match, Nikki began to climb the chamber in an attempt to escape but was caught by Ripley, who sent her flying onto Doudrop and Morgan. Seconds later, Ripley eliminated Nikki after hitting Riptide. Bliss, whose pod contained a swing, entered the match next, with Belair having secured her spot as the final woman to enter the match on this past Monday's Raw. Morgan eliminated Doudrop after hitting a sunset flip bomb from the turnbuckles, leaving it a 4-woman match as Belair entered the match. Belair immediately went to work with showy offense on Bliss and Morgan before coming face-to-face with Ripley. The two made the decision to align briefly and hit tandem delayed vertical suplexes. The alliance broke quickly when Ripley slapped Belair and the two began to brawl. In the ensuing chaos, Bliss managed to take out Morgan, hitting her with Twisted Bliss for the elimination. Moments later, Belair hit Ripley with the K.O.D. for another elimination. That left it to Bliss and Belair to battle it out for a shot at the Raw Women's title at WrestleMania. Belair missed a 450 splash but countered a Bliss DDT, with a front handspring before the women began trading several near falls until Belair hit the KO at D to get the win. This was a fast-paced chamber match that never had any time to drag and no one dropped the ball on their part. Most importantly, every woman in the match came out of it looking solid. Bianca Belair wins the Women's Elimination Chamber match. Grade A. 1 arms enough for at Ronda Rousey to make a fire tag to at Naomi WWE. Hashtag WWE Chamber. At MS Charlotte WWE. At Sonya Deville WWE PIC. At twitter.com/4SWUPCNL. WWE February 19, 2022. Ronda Rousey Naomi vs. Charlotte Flair Sonya Deville. Rousey wore a traditional judo gi for the match and had her right arm tied behind her back as contractually stipulated. Deville took her arm out of her sling immediately, showing she had faked the injury. Rousey still quickly took the fight to Deville before backing off and calling for Flair to enter the match, which Flair agreed to before immediately tagging back out to Deville. Rousey tagged in Naomi to face Deville, allowing her to get her hands on her longtime rival. Rousey tagged back in and was ready to lock Deville in an armbar when Flair attacked her from behind, sending her shoulder first into the turnbuckle. Flair and Deville kept their focus on Rousey's arm for a long stretch. After a hot tag to Naomi led to their team getting momentum back, Rousey re-entered the match and hit Piper's Pit on Deville before locking her in an armbar for the finish. Flair had the chance to break the hold but instead allowed Rousey to apply it. The match was fairly clunky, which wasn't helped by forcing Rousey to work with just her left arm for the entire match. While she can be a dynamic performer when she's on, Rousey is not a skilled enough wrestler to have a one-armed wrestler skill set. Ronda Rousey Naomi Death. Charlotte Flair Sonya Deville via submission. Grade B. 1 arms enough for at Ronda Rousey to make a fire tag to at Naomi WWE. Hashtag WWE Chamber. At MS Charlotte WWE. At Sonya Deville WWE PIC. At twitter.com/4SWUPCNL. WWE February 19, 2022. Drew McIntyre vs. Madcap Moss. Happy Corbin helped Moss jump McIntyre to start the match, which was entirely fair under the rule. McIntyre was able to fight back and get the upper hand on Moss, but every time he'd begin to gain momentum, Corbin would jump in the action. In the middle of the match, McIntyre hit a reverse Alabama slam that sent Moss crashing onto the top of his head, a situation that very nearly resulted in a serious injury. Moss was able to continue, however. McIntyre would go on to hit a superplex before grabbing his sword and using it to keep Corbin at bay before hitting Moss with a claymore to score the pin. A perfectly fine mid-card match that was helped by Corbin's ability to interfere. Moss is incredibly lucky he did not suffer a broken neck or worse. Drew McIntyre Death. Madcap Moss via pinfall. Grade B. Through the barricade goes at DMC entire WWE. Can it Madcap Moss pull off the upset with help from Happy at Baron Corbin WWE? Hashtag WWE Chamber. Hashtag Falls Count Anywhere pic.twitter.com N6QX9PQZR. WWE February 19, 2022. Raw Women's Championship. Becky Lynch vs. Lita. Lynch went right for an armbar, but Lita was able to counter before dropping the champion with a shoulder tackle. Lita continued to counter Lynch's aggression, hitting Arana to keep throwing Lynch off her game. Lynch was able to get rolling after using Lita's hair to drop the challenger across the top rope. Lynch continued focusing on Lita's neck, targeting an area that had been an issue throughout Lita's career. Still, Lita continued fighting back, scoring several near falls including after a big powerbomb. Lynch came back with an armbar, but Lita escaped and then avoided a moonsault from the champ. Lita hit a twist of fate and a moonsault, coming just inches from winning the title before Lynch kicked out. Lita tried to pull Lynch to her feet, but Lynch hit her with the manhandle slam to retain the title. Considering Lita hadn't wrestled a true singles match since 2006, this match was quite the accomplishment, and the twist of fate into the moonsault was a surprisingly believable false finish. Taken as a complete match, it wasn't near what Lynch is capable of, but working within the confines of Lita's capabilities, she delivered. Becky Lynch Death. Lita to retain the title. Grade B. Twist of fate moonsault kickout at Amy Dumas vs. at Becky Lynch WWE is awesome. Hashtag WWE Chamber PIC at twitter.com/achukugabqr. WWE February 19, 2022. SmackDown Tag Team Championship. The Usos vs. the Viking Raiders. The Usos attacked before the match, striking during the Raiders' entrance. The attack finished with the Usos hitting a tandem suplex on Ivar, dropping him on Eric. The Raiders were then deemed in no condition for the match, resulting in it never starting. The Usos vs. the Viking Raiders did not happen. The at WWE Usos weren't even about to let at Eric WWE at Ivar WWE get a hashtag SmackDown hashtag tag team titles opportunity tonight, hashtag WWE Chamber Live. Peacock https. Ugh. /t.co/th3 alongs 8 vhttps. Ugh. /t.co/aujawayup0uepic at twitter.com/2bz3rdlqw. WWE February 19, 2022 WWE Championship Elimination Chamber match. Bobby Lashley vs. Brock Lesnar vs. Seth Rollins vs. Riddle vs. Austin Theory vs. AJ Styles. Theory and Rollins opened the match, with Theory going right at Rollins from the opening bell. Rollins managed to come back with a series of superkicks. Rollins would continue the attack until he powerbombed Theory into the side of Lashley's pod, sending Theory through the plexiglass and into Lashley. Riddle then entered the match, with Theory down outside the ring and Lashley down inside his broken pod being tended to by officials. As the action continued, the WWE officials removed Lashley from the chamber and Styles' number came up to enter the match. The chaotic action continued with everyone getting in big moves. Lashley's pod was the next that was supposed to open, infuriating Lesnar, who kicked down the wall of his cell and hit Rollins and Riddle with F5s to score the first 2 eliminations of the match. At the same time, it was announced that Lashley was pulled from the match due to concussion protocol. Lesnar finished off Styles with an F5, leaving Theory as the only other man in the chamber. Lesnar stalked Theory around the cell, with Theory even trying to lock himself in a pod. Lesnar kicked the pod wall down and hit Theory with a suplex. Theory hit Lesnar with a low blow, a rolling dropkick and a DDT before scoring a 2 count. Realizing he hadn't finished off Lesnar, Theory climbed the chamber wall, trying to escape through the top. Lesnar caught up, however, and hit Theory with an F5 off the top of the pod before dragging him in the ring and scoring the pin to win the WWE title. The way they handled the Lashley situation here stunk. The rest of the match was very good, but to just nope Lashley out of the match to protect him from taking the loss feels cheap, no matter what the long-term plan is. Still, the match was fun and Lesnar in the chamber is a blast. Brock Lesnar won the WWE Championship. Grade B+. Hashtag the beast at Brock Lesnar was not going to wait any longer. He's entered the chamber and is eliminating everyone. Site, hashtag WWE Chamber PIC at twitter.com/LTHFJoeyWa. WWE February 19, 2022.